our people from the people who can do it the best. And we're fortunate tonight, and we want to come to our feet and welcome again the featured speaker of the night, Brother Otim Larib. Give him a black hand.
Give thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sometimes it's good to get those applause and accolades at the beginning, because a lot of times when you get through throwing this information out, people don't feel too good about that. All right? But giving thanks to the Creator and to our ancestors and to you for being out tonight, hopefully I can share some information with you that will do you some good, that can be a working tool as we sojourn here in what has been the hells of North America. We need all of the tools and all of the information we can get to work with, not just to listen to and feel good and shout about, but to do something with, to make a positive change in our lives, because we have gotten it. And my topic this evening, what I want to spin off from, because there are so many things that are relative, is the con in the Constitution, or the con and the Constitution, which is which. And this is what we want to examine tonight. I felt that it was appropriate to follow up with Brother Coakley the other night, who gave out some serious information, and just following up on what he said, not to reiterate what he said, but to build up on that, to give you even better understanding, those who were here. I chose this tonight. It's been rather revealing to me. It's something that I have embarked upon studying intensely, along with the other things that I study, because everything is so interrelated. African history, world history, then we get into this government and our government. When I say our government as African people, how does this relate to us? You know, we've been told that the Constitution doesn't apply to us. Then if you don't have the supreme law of the land, then what do you have as we're in this land? One thing I've heard as I've listened to some of the eminent professors, teachers, Dr. Clark, Dr. Van Yaknen, but especially Dr. Clark. I've listened to him for quite a while, and I've listened very intently to what he had to say. And he talked about our ordeal, this thing that we've come through called the slave era. I mean, it was a traumatic experience. We're still reeling from its repercussions. We're still in a recovery state. And this is why I think that this information is very vital. Because without information, you, as the brother said, you can't form a plan. I mean, what you got to go on? I was in service to the beast at one time in the military, and I was with an outfit that was a recon outfit. And recon is short for reconnaissance. And reconnaissance means information gathering. And they had an outfit, a unit, with no guns or anything. All they did was go out and get information. They had pictures. They had airplanes with pictures we call RF-4Cs, and they had high pans and low pans. They could get wide views, low views. But they had to have something concrete to take back so that the fellows with the muscle could go in and tear things up, you know, wreak this havoc. But they had to have that information. Before we can really do anything, before we can really strategize and formulate any plan of quote-unquote attack, you've got to have some reconnaissance information. The cavalry had them. They call them scouts. We have to go out and scout and know what's going on. We need to know who's who and what's what. And so tonight, I have some information that I'd like to share with you. First of all, I'd like to give some background, to make some preface remarks. I'd like to start off, and as I studied this information dealing with the Constitution and government, and as Dr. Clark said, as I started to mention a while ago, he always mentioned to say that we are a politically naive people. Now, I know if you got a voter's registration card and you vote every trip and you politically active, you don't think that you are. Well, you may not be. You may be more upon what I'm talking about tonight than I am. So therefore, if you are, I want you to rescue me, as Karinga said, rescue me if I'm wrong. What I'm about to present to you tonight, please don't misconstrue it as being legal advice. I am not an attorney. If you have a legal problem, I suggest that you get competent and straight up advice from a good lawyer. All right? Honest, very good, Brother Lewis. An honest lawyer. All right? I'll leave that up to you. Now that is about as rare today as a real dollar. All right? I didn't say it didn't exist. I just said it's rare. And a lot of times it's rare in our community because, as the brother mentioned earlier about Fanon, we've imitated and parroted to be so much until many times in action it's hard to distinguish who is who. So I want to start out tonight digging again into the life and times of Frederick Douglass. You see that I have all these books and papers up here. I don't know how to travel light. Always bring too much. But then I found it was better than not having enough. A lot I'll run through tonight. I'm not going to get every reference and quote it for you, but if you have a question, you can ask me at some point in time this evening, and hopefully I can give you a satisfactory answer and a reference, satisfactory reference that will lead you into others. But what I want to give to you tonight is food for thought and grounds for further research. As I said, I'm not representing the final word, but I'm just turning you on to what lit my fire. All right? And I have began to take some positive actions. I have began to utilize this information that I have, not just for the sake of knowing. I have jumped in the arena with the beast to fight him with his own stuff, as they say. And hopefully this will, in some way, the information tonight will empower you to fight. In some way, to fight. It will strengthen you somewhat, or let me say strengthen us. In the sense that Frederick Douglass was talking about in the life and times, he made a statement. He was sent to a farm to be broken, to have his spirit broken, because it seemed that he was somewhat impudent. Main thing, he wanted to learn how to read. That was the main thing he wanted to do. He wanted to know, what did the letter say? So he was sent to a man by the name of Covey. And Covey was known as a notorious slave breaker. And Covey, he bought urine on everybody that approached him. It's just the way he was. He'd give you a beating 2 or 3 times a day, whether you needed it or not. But the idea was to break your spirit, to break your will to fight against him. You know, we're given little cliches like, you can't fight City Hall. You can fight them and win. We got brothers and sisters in our midst who are beginning to do that, fighting and winning. Who said you can't fight City Hall? City Hall is where we catch a lot of hell from. You better be able to fight them and win. But there's a Calypsonian by the name of Shadow who has a song that says, somebody keep fooling somebody. So if you want to learn how to conquer, you got to first learn how to do what? Fight. So don't expect to conquer if you don't know how to fight and what to fight with. And don't look, as the brother was talking about earlier, from justice from unjust people. You can have just laws, but unjust people supposed to be enforcing them, you're still not going to get what's yours. And if you're not belligerent enough to stand up on your rights, your God-given, your Creator-given rights. I'm not talking about any validation from any white people. What I'm talking about is natural things, natural laws. Okay? But anyway, Frederick Douglass he was sent to this slave breaker. And after several floggings, all right, he got tired of it. So Frederick Douglass ran away. But in running away, he really had nowhere to run to. He just ran. He knew he had to get out from under that beating so he could think. And after being in the woods for a while, and his stomach started suing his backbone for non-support, meaning that he was hungry, he said, well, it seems that if I stay out here, I'm going to die. If I go back, I'll die. So rather than starve to death, I'd rather take my chances going back and facing this beast. So he went back, and when he came up on him, Frederick Douglass realized that, hey, he had 2 hands, 2 fists, and he had just as much force and just as much power as any white man he ever came up against. The only thing Frederick Douglass was lacking, he said, was reading. He needed to know how to read. So when Covey came out and saw him, he had his whip in his hand and came out to give him a good beating. Frederick Douglass balled up his hand, and as we say on the block, went up on him, dumped him, got on him and started beating him. Then finally a brother came out of the house, what's usually called a house Negro. He came out and looked, and Covey was saying, yo, come over here and help me. And for some reason, the brother just couldn't understand him that day. He just couldn't get it. You know, he got to scratching his head and shuffling. You know, all I know is whatever he was doing, he was shucking and jiving, but he wasn't about to mess with Frederick Douglass because he liked what he saw. And then his sister came out of the house. He tried to get her to help him. She feigned ignorance, like she didn't know what was going on or what should she do, that they were so hysterical. And the whole while, Frederick Douglass was pouring the coal on him. He was whooping him. And what was running through his mind was that if I'm going to die, as Claude McKay said, I'm not going to die like hogs pinned up in some inglorious spot. But he decided to come out and fight. And for that, I was inspired. And after he whipped this white man, this slave breaker, he beat him so good until Covey got up and didn't even say anything to Frederick Douglass. For the whole week, the whole state, he said nothing further to Frederick Douglass until it was time for him to leave, and told him, don't ever send that nigga back here no more. You know, that was their jargon. But Frederick Douglass noticed something from that point. And he said in his autobiography, a man, or we'll say a person, but we understand that man means mind. A man without force is without the essential dignity of humanity. See, force is essential. If you don't have force, people will walk all over you. This is why, you know, I look at this thing about gun buybacks. And I'm expressing some opinions too. I'm looking at gun buybacks. Somebody was talking about, I was reading in the paper where, man, they're offering $50 for a gun. I said, the only way I go and sell mine is that they give me enough to buy one better than that one. Because a man without force is without the essential dignity of humanity. I learned that from Queen Mother Moore's vow. In New Orleans, they faced the Ku Klux Klan. Marcus Garvey came to New Orleans to make a speech once, and the Ku Klux Klan came up as usual in packs, like dogs. And so he didn't show, but the next day they came back. Everybody was packing. Now, I'm not telling everybody to go and pack now. You do whatever you have to do. But anyway, everybody was packing. Queen Mother Moore said she had one in her bosom, one in her pocketbook. And when the Klan rode by, everybody just flashed. And they left. And they had no more problems. See, understand that rabbit hunting is fun as long as the rabbit ain't got no gun. See, everybody coming to you with the law, putting the law on you, is fun to them and it's profitable for them. Because you don't have anything to come back with. And when you go to try to get some representation to come back, look like it costs you even more. And you wonder what is happening. This is the stuff we deal with every day. But we've got to be empowered. We've got to have force. So therefore it says that a man without force is without the essential dignity of humanity. Human nature is so constituted, it is so made up, that it cannot honor a helpless man. It will not honor a helpless person. It will not honor beggars. It will not honor weak, helpless people. So it says, though it can pity him. See, there's a difference between pity and honor. Honor endures. Pity don't, because he said, and even this it cannot do long if the signs of power do not arise. They won't even feel sorry for you anymore. So what am I talking about today? What am I approaching today? The con in the Constitution. We have laws. We deal with laws that affect our everyday life. We have lawmakers. We have legislators. We live in a governmental system that we have been inside of for a few centuries, and we still have not grasped how it really works. Because if we did, we would be a lot more forceful than we are, from my viewpoint, and from the way I think that this knowledge has empowered me. I'm not almighty now, but I'm a little more forceful than I was 6 months ago. And this is the way we all should be growing. We should see our lives progressing. That's what the beetle is about from ancient Egypt, the scarab beetle. It's about to become. We're not satisfied with just what we are, but we will look forward to growth. And our lives, we should be able to measure and say, I'm stronger this month than I was 6 months ago. So when we're talking about law, it's what I want to deal with a little bit tonight. So this is why I chose the topic con in the Constitution. What is the Constitution? I know I didn't learn very much about it in school. I learned that there was one. We learned the preamble, but we never did study it. It was hung up on the wall, but you ever notice I always kept it like it was written with a feather? It was always put up as that original old manuscript that nobody deals with anymore. And we looked at it like that. I didn't pay it any attention. It wasn't important to me. It seems that would be stressed in school, but there's a reason why it was not. And there's a reason why this interest has resurfaced, because this is not the first time this has happened. Thanks to Lerone Bennett and his book, Blacks in the Making of America. I meant to bring it with me. I went off and left it on the table. I grabbed so much stuff, you know. I just said, well, maybe I need to take this, and I left it. But that's a book everybody needs to read, called The Shaping. Is it The Shaping of Black America? The Shaping of Black America. Okay, I thought it was Blacks in the Making of America, but The Shaping of Black America by Lerone Bennett, the editor of Ebony Magazine, senior editor, and also he's written Before the Mayflower. And I had this book on my shelf about 6 months. And I never did. I bought it for one thing that he had in there on field order number 15. I read it. It was so good. I started reading it. Before you know it, back and forth through the pages, I'm through the whole book. And the information that it had in there is awesome. That it has in there is awesome. But anyway, the Constitution, the supreme law of the land. Now, what I have given you opportunity to get tonight is a little handbook, a little pocket book. The supreme law of the land in a book. You can keep the supreme law of the land in your back pocket. Everybody's member of organizations, some sororities, fraternities, societies, or what have you, but you all have constitutions, right? Constitution and what? Bylaws. And if you want the organization to run on course, you run it according to what? Its constitution and its bylaws, because that settles all the arguments. But if somebody can get in the midst and throw something out of context of the Constitution and its bylaws, of its governing authority, which is its Constitution, then you got havoc, you got a mess. And the only way that it can get back on course is somebody going to say, well, it says according to the Constitution. And if anybody disputes that, then you know what's what and who's who. All right? But anyway, where did this Constitution come from? It said that, well, it has nothing to do with us. It's not ours. Oh, really? I found out something different. I found out that Thomas Jefferson was not the author of the Constitution. After I read it and really considered it, I said, considering most of the things in here, it's too humane. I mean, don't let us deny it because we've gotten some bad deals. Let's don't deny it. I said it's too humane. When it says that all men are created equal, but yet and still, you got 300 or 400 black people out here against their will and shackles working. You got one under the basement, Sally Hemings. He had 5 children by and sold every one of them into slavery. No, this document was too humane to say he authored it. Well, you know what? True to that conviction and that suspicion, I found out some information. They didn't author that. Who authored it? According to a book called Forgotten Founders by Bruce Johnson, the Iroquois Confederation contributed the body of the Constitution to a group of white people who came here as this land was already inhabited. We've had history lessons and we pretty well know that. It was inhabited, the indigenous people. Many of them were very black, already here. Look at J.A. Rogers' work and look at some of the pictures or the drawings that he has in there of Native Americans in California at the time when Columbus made it in this part of the world. Look just like any brother you find down here in the West End. Go out to the mounds. You've seen the mounds out at Etowah. The mounds at Etowah, you go and you look at them, and they are built just like Imhotep built step pyramids. And they say, we don't know why they went from graves to start building mounds. It just said all of a sudden they start doing. Whenever they say stuff like that, look for us in there somewhere. Then you connect that up with the Olmec civilization, and that it made its way up north. Then a lot of the same habits caught on. Here the pyramids come. But you have to watch it, and you have to have this sense. And don't be afraid to think and disagree. And say that don't agree with sound reasoning. Truth always agrees with sound reasoning, I found. But anyway, as they came in, they grouped up, formed 13 colonies. Different groups came in as they came in, as England began to dump her prisons out. That's the way they thin the prison population down. They didn't get rid of crime, they just got rid of the criminals. And the crime keeps on going to this day. They shuffle them from one pillar to a post. They sent some to Devil's Island. They sent some to Savannah. Savannah was a penal colony. Georgia, Savannah, Georgia is a penal colony. The warden was James Oglethorpe. But anyway, all of this going on, when they came in, they really wasn't up on government. But they wanted to know how could they get out from under the tyranny that they were under, you see, because understand, white folks was oppressing white folks. So they came out. They came here, and they needed to know. It was the Native Americans that brought them through the winters. They didn't know how to plant. They didn't know anything about the continent. They didn't know anything about this area. So they were sustained by the very ones that they called savages, by their humaneness, their kindness, their generosity. But anyway, let me read. It says, the Iroquois contribution to the Constitution. Most Americans are aware of Native American contributions such as corn and tomatoes. Few realize that the United States Constitution also has its roots in Native American culture. In particular, the model of government developed by the Iroquois Confederacy of Nations. Now, where was the Iroquois Confederacy of Nations? See, when you talk about nations, that adds more grandeur than calling people by tribes. You ever notice they always like to refer to us as being tribes or tribal warfare? You know, you got a handful of people here and a handful of... But these were nations. nations. The Iroquois Confederation, the Iroquois around the Great Lakes region, on down where it comes in contact with the around Virginia, that area. It was a big area. And this continent consisted of different nations. And these people were not stupid. They were not illiterate savages. Matter of fact, one of the oldest New Testaments written, or the oldest New Testament in this continent, is written in a language that nobody reads now. In a Native American writing, they wrote Native American writing that nobody reads anymore, because after they had gotten it, they killed them all. So it says here that the model of government developed by the Iroquois Confederacy of Nations, according to Jack Weatherford in his book, Indian Givers, the Iroquois helped the colonists resolve a major dilemma. How could 13 sovereign, listen to that word, sovereign, how could 13 sovereign and separate states be made into one country without each one giving up its powers, without each one giving up its sovereignty? How could that happen? Well, following our excerpts from a congressional resolution passed by the House and Senate in 1988. I didn't hear about this in 88. It wasn't on TV. I was looking at a little more of it then than I'm looking at now. I didn't hear about it in any schools. My children didn't come and tell me about it. But there was a resolution passed by the House and the Senate in 1988. What did this resolution say? Which, among other issues, recognized the United States debt to the Iroquois Confederacy. Whereas, and I'm quoting, whereas the original framers of the Constitution, ain't that a good word for them? Framers. All they did was take the document and put it up in a frame and said, look what we did. The original framers of the Constitution, including most notably George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, are known to have greatly admired the concepts of the 6 nations of the Iroquois Confederation. There were 6 independent groups who had been having some conflict among each other, who did the humane thing, came together in council, used their head and said, look, divided we'll surely be destroyed. Let's come together and have a confederation where we'll work together, but each nation is independent. So on that concept, the United States, or the states united in America, came up under. And that document that they copied from that was called the Constitution. So, whereas the confederation of the original 13 colonies into one republic, remember that word, republic, because that has been incorporated into what? The Pledge of Allegiance. That says, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the democracy for which it stands. To the republic, right? Well, why in the heck does everybody keep talking about democracy? We want to restore democracy. If you knew what democracy was, you'd know why they want to restore it. You know why they want to bring it out. But we never question these words. Why do we hear one thing coming from a pledge and to the republic? Because the republic is what empowered individuals. The republic is what gave people independence, which gave people their God-given rights, which let them carry on in their capacity with the rights that the Creator gave them. But democracy molds you into one common herd. 50% plus one, I don't care what your God-given rights are. You got to go with the flow. That is the difference. We've got to start thinking these things out and understand and see where the tricks have come in. Because right now, we're in a death and life struggle with this instrument. Everybody's familiar and has heard of the New World Order. Well, I mean, it was a New World Order in 1492. Ain't nothing but an extension of the Old World Order of the European. The same cast of characters, the same descendant from the Dutch East India Company, the same descendant from the British East India Company and West India Company. They're using the same tactics. They're using the same tactics with dope, tearing down societies with dope. They tore down the Chinese with opium. Now they're tearing down this place with cocaine, AIDS, and everything else is going on. And sugar. That was the first one. Boy, what has sugar got to do with this? How the Moors failed. Moors were strong in Spain and in the Iberian Peninsula. They was carrying culture into Europe, raising the beast to walk on his hind feet, 2 feet. And all of a sudden they found something known as sugar and started feeding them. And it made them weak. And that's when they started getting up the courage and nerve to come down and fight them now, because they was latched on to a new fantasy. That's what he's talking about. But I'm going to leave that alone right now. I just mentioned it. But anyway, whereas the Confederation of the original 13 colonies came into one republic, was influenced by the political system developed by the Iroquois Confederacy. That's right. They wasn't dancing with no wolves neither. Now, from all that we've been taught and all that we've been shown, we've been told that the Indians were savages. And that we're still divesting ourselves of all of these images that we were given. We have to throw this stuff away every day. Can you imagine them saying that this was influenced by the political system? They had a political system? The political system developed by the Iroquois Confederacy, as were many of the democratic principles which were incorporated into the Constitution itself. Be it resolved by the Senate, the House of Representatives concurring, that, number one, the Congress, on the occasion of the 200th anniversary of the signing of the United States Constitution, acknowledges the historical debt which the Republic of the United States of America. Now, I'm putting emphasis on this stuff, and I want you to remember that we had a teacher in engineering school, and every time he said, now, whenever you hear me do this, say, you better take note. He'd make a statement, and he'd do that, and you know, this is one I better write down. Okay? But I put emphasis on the Republic of the United States of America owes to the Iroquois Confederacy and other Indian nations, so-called, for their demonstration of enlightened democratic principles of government and their example of a free association of nations. They got their first example. But how many of us was told that? How many of us knew that? How many of us can teach our children that? How many of us received all of those lies all over the years? That's why I said it didn't make sense to me, because here they were saying that we hold these truths to be self-evident. We know that much, that all men are created equal. So therefore, who do I wait on to validate my manhood? Who do I wait to validate and say I'm more than 3/5 of a man? I don't wait for anybody to validate my manhood, because I understand that all men are created equal. Men and women. See, we got caught up in this thing, and so some sisters look and say, well, we're talking about people. All minds are created equal. All right? And it tells us here, let's look at it. If you got the document there. I'm just want to reference some points here. All right? It says here in the first paragraph, when in the course of human events, this is the one we always remember for civics class, right? When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another. Now, do you hear that? It says here, when it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands of another that has kept them, bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth, see, you have to take it all on yourself. This is what they did. They took it up on themselves. The hell they was catching in England, they said, this ain't hitting on nothing. So we getting out from under this. All right? So what they had here, they said, the powers of the earth, the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature. They didn't wait for anybody to validate what they did. They came up under the laws of nature. They came up under the laws of the Creator. And they asserted themselves. Say, hey, we're men too. We've got to take that same position again. We've done it before, now we've got to do it again. Now it says here, of nature and of nature's God entitled them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, and I hold them to be self-evident too. And I decided to make my stand based on the laws of nature. Have you forgotten nature made the first laws? Upon the laws of nature. We hold these truths to be self-evident. We know this one by heart, that all men are created equal and are endowed. When you are endowed with something, that means you're given something, right? So now we're saying here that there has been something given to us by the Creator. And it says here, and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Now, not inalienable, unalienable. Now, what is the root of that word unalienable? It's one small word spelled where am I? Make sure I get it right. It's spelled L-I-E-N, lean, unalienable rights. Anybody ever heard of a lien before? Anybody ever had a lien, as they say, had a lien slapped on you? All right? Everybody's familiar with a lien. That means a lien, when something is lien, that means that somebody else has attached it, man, you can't do nothing with it. So we're told here, we were endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, which means nobody can put a lien on them. They're yours forever and ever to use with as you so please, as long as you don't interfere with those same rights given to somebody else. All right? So it says here, unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, in order to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, you don't have to ask anybody. It was given to you. Now, whether you use it or not, that's your business. Whether you use it or not, it's just like saying, I could give you some silver and gold. If you're a poor person, I give you silver and gold. Or we'll just say, I'll give you money. Now, you can either use that money or just put it in your pocket and walk around and say, I ain't getting up off of my money. And you can eat out of the garbage. You can go and you can bum around if you want to, but you don't have to. Do you hear what I'm saying? You don't have to. All right? So we've been given this. It's the supreme law of the land. Now, let me read something to you here. On page 7 of this little booklet. On page 7 of the little booklet. I'm going to step up a little bit too, because I got a lot of information I want to throw out here to you. Taking the shotgun approach here. We're going to, boom, put it out here now. And as I said, it's food for thought and grounds for further research. Page 7, Law of the Land. Now, this excerpt is taken from something that you can find in any law library, called the 16th American Jurisprudence, the 2nd edition, section 177. And it says, the general misconception Now, when we say general misconception, that means that everybody just about thinks this. Or as we said, nearly about everybody thinks this. Right? Almost everyone thinks this. See, I know how to do it either way. The general misconception is that any statute passed by legislators bearing the appearance of law constitutes the law of the land. What is that saying? The general misconception. Everybody is getting some wrong information here. Because most people think that anything that legislators pass, any statute that bears the appearance of law. Now, when we talk about something having the appearance of, it's just like you got some men walking around that have the appearance of a woman. And at first sight, you look at them, you think that's a woman. Well, that's called a misconception. But upon further investigation, now I don't know how far, but upon further investigation, you find out that it wasn't what it appeared to be. So no, you no longer call it what you used to call. You no longer call him a woman. You say that's a man in woman's clothing. So what we have here, it says we got a lot of statutes that are palmed off on us as laws. And we obey them as such because we want to be lawful, you know, we're law-abiding citizens. I ain't never been in trouble with the police. But it says here that they bear the appearance of law. Now, in legal terminology, which we've got to start learning that too. And the best way you're going to learn it is you're going to have to get your dictionary. You're going to have to get your dictionary. This is called Black's Law Dictionary. This means this tells you the definitions of things as it pertains to what? The law. So that means you can't go to Webster and get this information. Webster might get you some time. Because you will go in there and get a what? Misconception. So they have special dictionaries called law dictionaries. Black's is one. Another one that blacks came from is called Bouvier's, which came from the French. Now, when you understand history in a world context, you can understand how that evolution came about. We know of the French Revolution, whereas you had the aristocrats, which were mainly what? Lawyers. Don't get me wrong, I'm not in the lawyer bash tonight. But I'm just giving you the facts as they've been given. The lawyers were the ones. They were the ones who were shuffling the paper and making the deals and the contracts and all, and people didn't know what they were getting into, and before they knew it, they had lost everything. The Queen, Marie Antoinette, said the people were hungry, and what was it said? She told them, let them eat cake. But eventually, justice was served because her head rolled. But those lawyers who packed their grips and got out of there when the heat was on, they went to England. When they went to England, they became part of its politics and established themselves in their bipartisan politics as the Whigs. All right? Now, as the Whigs, when this thing started happening, whereas people were starting to migrate over to the New World to set up the New World Order, all right, the lawyers came with them. These are the ones who went and copied from the Iroquois. They knew good documentation when they saw it. They looked and said, man, this is some bad stuff. These people are by no means ignorant. Let's frame it. So they became the framers. But that class of who became the landowners, so-called, who took the land, the aristocratic class, like Jefferson, and watch, these people were lawyers.